Hi all, this is Maria Clark at Sweet Willow Designs and welcome to my studio. Before we get started, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post new videos. And I'd also like you to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content of this video and want to see more. I'd really appreciate that. Don't forget to leave me a comment as well. All right, here's the full list of tools and materials that we'll be using in this project. I've got a whole range of paint here that I'm using, and they're all listed in the description below and also on the page that has the tools and materials. But let me just go over them real quick. These are the Deco Art Americana multi-surface paints. You have to use a multi-surface or an enamel paint on something like these plastic chargers or your paint's just not going to adhere. But I'm using the Night Sky, Green Beret, Black Tie, Turf Green, Woodland Green, Cotton Ball, and Lipstick. And that's a really fun bunch of colors here. I'll also be using a cosmetic sponge for the stenciling. And then I've got a surprise tool for you. These are these little scrubby buddies that I got from the Dollar Tree. There's a couple of types. This one is the one I'm going to be using, which are the thinner ones. They come in this package of multicolors. And then there's also some that are wider, but you can choose the ones that you like. And I'm also using my stencil that's available in my Etsy shop. This is the Poinsettia in the 8-inch. I've also got a charger plate in this really fun Buffalo Plaid from the Dollar Tree. So let's go ahead and start working this project. I usually do a voiceover on my videos. I film them and then I edit and then do a voiceover. And I'm looking at my table here, and I've done several projects, and I'm down to like 14 inches of workspace. My table gets so messy. You must clean the charger off with some alcohol to make sure that you don't have any grease or there's no dirt on this, so that would affect the adhesion of the paint. And then I'm going to go ahead and place my stencil. Now I'm going to be doing this tree design, so I'm going to place my stencil up a little higher in the center of this charger, and this is the 8-inch stencil. So it's convenient because the plate has these lines on it, but just make sure that when you line yours up, you're trying to get it to the center. And then I'll just tape that down so that it's not going to move around when I paint. And then I've got my palette, and I'll use the Night Sky, which is a pretty kind of gray blue. It's just a beautiful color. And I'll go ahead and get that out on my foam plate, which I'm using as my palette. And then again, just a reminder on the technique for stenciling like this, get a little bit of paint, and then you've got to tap most of it off. Otherwise, you'll have seepage between these fine lines on the stencil. And then I'll just start stenciling. This is going to take several layers of paint because I do want to cover up, maybe not entirely, but mostly cover up that Buffalo Plaid that's on the back. That's a pretty bold graphic. And so I want to fill this in. So I'm just going to dab my paint and get several layers of that Night Sky on there so that I can fill that space in. You could use any kind of plate. I mean, the Dollar Tree or Hobby Lobby or Michael's or any of the big craft stores, Walmart put out some really pretty plaid plates last year that I was able to pick up. And you can use them. Use any one of those plates. Just make sure you have a good contrast. All right, so there's my mandala, my poinsettia mandala. Now I'm just using a fine paintbrush and some black paint. This is really just reference. This is going to disappear. And I'm just going to go ahead and put where I want my trees. Now I'm going to put 3 trees on here. So the center one will be my primary tree, and then I'll put one on either side, different locations, sort of one higher, one lower. And then I've got my scrub buddy here, and I'm going to cut a piece off, and then I'll even cut a little bit smaller. And then I've got 3 greens that I'm going to use, and then I'll use the black to actually create a darker green, darker shade of green for the shadows. Okay, and now I'm going to take the edge of that scrub buddy, and I'm going to start tapping it on my plate and start to simulate the branches. As I move up, I'm going to change the orientation of the scrubbing tool so that it's lined up to be smaller at the top. See how I've changed that a little bit? And then I'm just putting a tree shape. I'm not being overly careful because I'm going to be doing layers of paint. Now I'm going to go in and do that second tree and then the third tree. The Scrub Buddy is perfect for making these branches, and I'll tell you what, you're going to get a good looking tree using this technique. Okay, now I'm just going to go in and start to put some different colors. I'm using the Woodlawn, which is a little bit lighter green, and I'm just layering on top of the first layer of paint that I put down some lighter green. So this is going to give me shadows and highlights and contrast. You can change the shape of the trees if, as you're painting, you don't like the shape, just go ahead and change it. You know, add some more branches here and there. Okay, now I'm going in with the lightest color, which is the turf green. Putting a few more highlights, adding some depth of color. Now I'm going in with the white. I wanted to tell you one thing about the trees that are in the back. I didn't add the lightest green on those trees because they're going to fade into the background, so they're going to be a little bit darker. But now I've got some white. I'm just using the same piece of Scrub Buddy, and I've got some white, and I'm going to start to put a little bit of snow on those branches. And I'm just changing, you know, where the tool goes to get a look, to get the look of branches and then snow on these branches. And I'm just imagining, you know, what the trees out here in Colorado look like when they've got snow on them. Okay, now I'm going to put a teensy little bit of snow on those back trees. Not very much, so I've tapped a lot of the paint off. I really want that middle tree to be in the front. Now to get the very darkest shadow, I've mixed a little bit of the woodland green with black, with the black tie, to create a darker green, and this will be the darkest one. Now I'm going back in and I'm just adding some shadow to give it just a little bit more definition. So I'm adding a little bit of shadow, same tool, using my Scrub Buddy, but you can see how I'm starting to get a little bit more depth and some shadows there. Now I'm going to put a little bit of snow, so I'm using some of the night sky and some white. I'm just mixing it on my palette using the tool, the Scrub Buddy, and I'll just go around the base of these trees. I'm going to go out over the edge onto the rim of the plate and place my snow. So that's giving me a really pretty kind of blue-gray and white look, so it kind of looks like there's even shadows in the snow. And just carrying some of that paint, you know, across the rim and down on the rim underneath those trees. And then make sure that I've got a grounding for the top trees, the background trees. I got to tell you, I'm pretty impressed with the way these trees look. I really was awesome. All right, now I'm going back in with the green. I'm using my darker green, and I'm putting some branches down here, and they're just going to go back over the snow a little bit. So I get a little bit of darker color there, and it's as though those branches are reaching out over the snow. A little bit of white now to put some snow on those lower branches. And then any place else I think I need to add a little bit of highlight with the snow. All right, now I'm going to go up to the Poinsettia Mandala, and I'm going to start to add just a little bit of snow. I'll overlap the stenciling with white and just randomly place some dots of white snow. I'd love to hear from any of you if you actually use this technique on the trees or if you do this particular design. It's just so pretty. I love it. I love the way it turned out. Okay, so just, as much as you think you need in terms of snowfall. And I finished that piece. And here's how we're looking so far. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, I'm trying to decide whether I want to add another color and put some ornaments on these trees. So in the end, I did decide to use the red. This is the lipstick red. And I did put a few ornaments on the main tree. I didn't put any on the back tree. I just went ahead and put them on the front here. Let me give you a kind of a good look at this. You could leave it just like this and I think it would be just perfect. But I am going to add a little bit of the red. Okay, here we are, and you can see the red, just a teeny little bit. I did not add very much because I was a little non-committal on the red. I think in the end it turned out pretty, but I had wanted to try to create, I don't know, more of a softer look, but I think this turned out great. Now I'm going to just clean this up a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and let all of it dry. I am not going to varnish this. This is multi-surface paint on this plastic plate, so I don't feel like I need to varnish it. And I'll just go ahead, and that's the end of the project. I just love it. I think it turned out great, and it's a nice way to have a really pretty winter decorative piece. I want to thank you so much for joining me in my studio today. Don't forget to subscribe, leave me a thumbs up or a comment. I really enjoy hearing from you. Thanks so much for joining me in my studio. Take care.